same situation with the church. However, the alchemists could graduate to avoiding spiritual things, just do the material. The shamans didn't have anything else. They just had spirits, and I think
that made stay on the ground, hide out in the woods, and
and that was very tough for them.
But the alchemists, and of course there were specialists. That some probably specialized more on the chemistry part, and maybe some were trying to make gold out of lead, or why not? I mean, if you could figure out a way to do it, it would solve a lot of your financial problems, But
and metaphorically, it had some validity. I mean, you're still trying to make gold out of lead.
Absolutely, metaphorically, it's making something precious out of the extracting something precious out of the ore, which is the surrounding kind of dark, rough stuff of negativity, or the hard knocks of life experience.
Well, how do you guide that? Because remember, we were both agreeing that this stuff can go in the wrong direction. How do you, or how have you in the past, guided people so the gold would emerge rather than something negative?
Yeah, to me, the key was learning to work with the light fire energy, which is which is in alchemy would be called purificatio. It's actually working with light fire energy that you tap into through intention internally. And these are techniques of meditation yoga that you can learn, but intuitively they also come in through invocation, and it's not symbolic. It's an actual working with the actual life energy, but symbolism kind of grows up around it, of course. So, see, Jung said the vessel of the alchemist was the relationship field of the psychotherapy relationship. But I would argue on the basis of my studies that the vessel is actually the human body and the energy field of the human body. That's the laboratory in which the alchemical work takes place, self-transformation. I mean, think of it, if you're trying to heal yourself of an addiction, let's say alcoholism or whatever it might be, or some obsessive thing or a psychotic thing, do you have to actually work with your body and your mind and your feelings? It's all connected, you see.
Have you changed your position, particularly from the time that you wrote the Tibetan Book of the Dead with the others, are taught in the early 60s, that it's setting, intention?
No, that's still absolutely, and that was for me very significant when I encountered your work on shamanism, where you emphasized becoming clear about your intention, having a clear question or intention in your mind, staying conscious and remembering what you're given and bringing it back and recording it. And the advantage of the drumming method really being the fact that you could do like 6 drumming method journeys in one day, you see, and get the practice of being clear what you're asking, going in, getting the question, getting the answer, bringing it back. And so I always have encouraged people to, who want to work with psychedelics, to study also the other method of shamanism.
Interesting.
And so that, because then it also helps you becoming clear that you're not dealing with a drug effect. See, that's actually my biggest difficulty in talking to people who want to work with drugs. You got to get over the thing that you're doing, exploring drug effects, like you're doing pharmacology. Especially the scientists, they don't get that. They think, you take this drug, you get this effect. You take this drug, you get this effect. It's like, that's not it.
I think that's been one of the most important contributions, showing their paths besides drugs and besides drumming, that we're dealing with a whole nother reality.
Right.
And you can enter it different ways. Would that be your view too?
Yeah, exactly. It's consciousness. It's consciousness, and consciousness is all pervasive, all pervasive throughout the entire universe. At all levels, you see. That's instead of trying to explain consciousness by brain stimuli jerking around in your skull, that doesn't explain anything. I mean, it explains something, but doesn't explain. Consciousness is inherent in everything.
Now, I know there often were special names, secret names or otherwise, in alchemy for various substances. Some of them were names of animals, for example. But a deeper question than that is, what is your view, either personal in terms of alchemy or in terms of the tradition, of its relationship to spirits? So what kind of spirits are we talking about, if we're talking about spirits?
It's full of spirits.
Okay.
So Paracelsus, he was the greatest alchemist. He generally regarded, and he was totally a mystic and a healer, and empirical healer. He said he learned most of his healing methods from from the witches in the woods, because they were the herbalists. And he was one of the first people to work with specific remedies for specific conditions, because the miners, were working with the metals, were getting all these lung diseases, and so he figured out certain plants and mineral substances that he could use to help them with their minds. Because medicine in those days was like book learning. People used to look up Galen, from 6 centuries ago, to figure out what medicine to give to somebody. They didn't know anything. And then it's interesting because Paracelsus, he would go around and heal people, and then, other shamans too. He said, well, I had to be careful because as soon as I healed the king's son, I had to leave town because all the other doctors were after me, and because they were jealous. It's just like the people do in the Amazon and these digital societies. You evoke the jealousy or envy of another practitioner by healing somebody, and watch out, watch your back, So it happens all the time. It happens today, for that matter. And maybe today we don't send little darts, but we do the equivalent.
Well, mentally it can be done unconsciously.
Yeah, sure. And professionally we do other things like ruin the guy's reputation, or cause him financial difficulties, or sue him, or something like that.
But we rely very much on specific kinds of spirits and so on. And I think you yourself have said that the spirits used in alchemy were basically amoral or neutral. Is that right?
Well, the spirits of stone, the spirits of the material world seem to be neutral, and I got that also from reading the Germanic European mythology.
Well, I'm completely in agreement.
Yeah, the giants, the giants and the dwarves. See, the giants are the spirits of vast mountain ranges and deserts and rivers and oceans and like that, and the forests and the dwarves are the spirits of the stone and the rock and that live in the mountains.
But they're neither evil nor good, they're just there.
No, they have their own agenda. They have their own intention, you see. Yeah. Jeremy Narby was saying, the film I just saw, that his work is now, it's like the shamans say, all of nature has intention. Plants have intention, rocks have intention, winds have intention, everything has intention. And we can know it, we can communicate on that basis.
What film is this?
There's a film called Night of the Liana that Jeremy Narby just made, where he took the 3 scientists.
I'd like to learn about that.
Yeah.
Is that been out yet?
Into the Amazon.
Where do you find it?
I don't know. Actually, I have to find out.
On the Pioneers website.
And the Pioneers.
They have a link to.
Yes. Yeah,
okay,
that's right. That's right. He showed it at the Pioneers. Yeah. Anyway, so Paracelsus, for example, and other alchemists talked about the spirits of the 4 elements: the earth, air, fire, and water. The spirits of the earth are gnomes, and of the water are undines, and of air are elves, and of fire are salamanders. For a long time, I never could figure out why they said, salamanders can't burn. That's ridiculous. Of course, salamanders burn, but why are they the spirits of fire? And Dave Pandera recently pointed out to me because they probably saw salamanders running out of the logs when they were putting logs on the fire, you see. So they said, it lives in the fire, and it's hightailing it out of there, which makes sense. So they would use it, and so you could say, well, okay, but then also, see, psychologically, Earth is the 4 elements is actually a comprehensive mapping. See, the Earth is all solid matter. So the flesh and bones, that's all Earth, of our body and the environment. Water is everything liquid. The body is liquid, but it's also emotional, because waters are liquid and flow, and so, and then air is all the gaseous and vaporous aspects of life and nature, but it's also the mental, because...
But in shamanism we think of the spirit, the spirit of fire, the spirit of earth, and that, as you were in agreement, it's immoral. It can be very powerful, and therefore it can be dangerous. It can be a basis for sorcery, for example. Right. Do you have any thoughts on the relationship of harmful use of these things?
Yeah, well, and also really difficult, and difficult to work with, tricky. But I suppose, if people would try to work with the spirits of fire. I used to do experiments in groups with helping people get in touch with the spirits of air, air, water, earth, and fire, and fire being generally the energetic aspect of life on all levels, and then seeing if you can have some kind of communication with. See, in the mythology, they did say they're not benevolent, but they're not malevolent either, the spirits in themselves, towards humans. Unlike the gods and the benign spirits that really are benevolent towards humans. In the mythology, they're not against you though either, and they can be very knowledgeable.
But their power can be utilized for bad or good purposes.
But then so can other kinds of power, I would think.
But if we use the term gods, which you and I would agree is benevolent.
Yeah, they're benevolent. But like plant spirits, for example, you can use plant spirits to poison people.
Yeah. Well, they're middle world. From our point of view, those are middle world things too. But the gods are, at least for our work, are in the upper and lower world, and particularly knowledgeable as being a part of the upper world. There's more disagreement about the lower world, but not among people that really know shamanism, but in terms of cultural tradition. And so there's a utility in cooperating with them because they are compassionate, they are helpful. But using these middle world powers is a touchy thing.
But could there also be spirits in the middle world that are benevolent?
Oh yes, but in a limited way generally. When Bill was talking about the Ngana-san figure, and he's mentioned that this embodied an ethnocentric compassionate figure, and that's what we determine is a figure that is helpful and protective of its people, but ethnocentric, and will do battle against the enemies. And so there are
an ancestor spirit.
Ancestor. If the ancestors are still here in the middle world, then the ancestors still can be ethnocentric. So it gets complicated in the middle world, and that's why we focus in our work at getting people, at least in their initial work, to the upper and lower worlds, where it's benign, but here in the middle world we have these complications. And I don't know in alchemy if they bother with the three world concept or not. Maybe they don't.
I haven't seen it, but
maybe
it doesn't mean it's not there.
They may have left it to shamanism.
That's possible, which is like in India and Nepal, apparently that happens similar. There's a division between the yogis and the shamans, or the lamas, Lama Buddhists and the shamans, with the shamans focusing more on the healing. And generally there are different, even within yoga, you have some that focus more on the emotional transformation, like Bhakti Yoga, some more on the mental, like Jnana
Let's
Yoga.
go back to the transformation of the person. This is a key aspect, I think, of the idea of ingesting a philosopher's stone, if you will, or something of that type, and changing the person and that person's behavior is a model and influences other people. Shamanism is not quite so subtle. Shamanism, it's more, you undergo these things to happen to you so you can get in alliance with these spirits that you work with, and then you actively go to heal others or do divination for others. It's more of get the tools, get the power, and go to work on others. It's less subtle, perhaps. What do you think?
But to get there are those two